Hey everyone, today we're going to be sharing a show that originally aired on the Hungry Dog Barbell Podcast hosted by Taylor Williams. It was a great conversation and it ended up going a lot of the direction of just my life as a whole and like how I started Zor Fitness, how I came to open a gym, and it's things that I often don't talk about as much on this podcast, so it's going to be a little bit different, change of pace. So I hope you guys enjoy it. The fitness movement is brought to you by Zor Fitness. We offer coaching and individualized program design, as well as educational content for coaches and athletes. It's all at one place, zorfitness.com.
What up, dogs? Welcome back to another episode of the Hungry Dog Barbell Podcast. I'm joined by another awesome guest, full-time trainer, gym owner, Ben Wise, and fellow podcaster, I should say, as well. Ben, how are you today, dude?
Really good. Thanks for having me on.
That's awesome, bro. So what does like your Wednesday look like? Record this on a Wednesday afternoon. What does your like week look like as a gym owner, trainer, podcaster, all that stuff?
Yeah. Well, luckily I get to kind of share responsibilities with my business partner. And so that's Stacey Cadena. She co-owns Lumber Capital Athletics with me. Also, luckily I don't have this like crazy workload of, like classes that I got to take on, or like, we get to kind of split a lot of the responsibilities. So I got to give her credit there where it's due. But thankfully, we can kind of like focus on our strengths, and that allows us to kind of also not be as chaotic with like, because there's just like a lot to do. Like, like working at a gym, like it's a lot. So thankfully, like we get to split that stuff. But, for like me, like a typical week, I have like a lot of like the business, like to do stuff that is like, I sort of like think about it as like on like a weekly recurring basis, that I try to like check off all these different items that I got, like, programming I do on like a weekly basis, for example. So like there's all that kind of stuff. So awesome. There's a lot of like business things that I typically try to do in the front half of the week. And then more of like program design for athletes, the gym, and like creative stuff I try to push towards like Wednesday through Friday more so.
Yeah. Cause do you do social media stuff up there? Like, how do you guys handle that?
Yeah. We both will pop on, but I am primarily in charge of that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's dope. So Lumber Capital, where is that exactly? Is it in Williamsport?
Williamsport. Yep.
Okay. Awesome. Like, I'm not super great, especially with towns up by the Poconos. So that was a little bit of a long shot right there. Ben, are you from that area? How'd you get up there?
I'm not. I'm a transplant. My wife's from here. She grew up here, and we met in college. And I grew up about 2 hours south of Williamsport. Little town called Manheim, Lancaster County. So central Pennsylvania still.
Oh, nice. Oh, so you're a little bit used to that area. What was Little Ben like? Did you play sports growing up? When did you get like athletic?
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely always played sports that, like Pee Wee stuff and like all the way up through. Variety of stuff, like largely it was like soccer, wrestling. And the interesting thing was like, I didn't, like most people who get into wrestling, it was like, my dad wrestled, so I wrestled. It's like hunting for like Pennsylvania. It's like people who get into hunting. It's like very rarely do people like get into hunting if they like nobody in their family did. Like typically, like if the dad doesn't do it, like you don't
just go pick it up. Yeah.
It's not same thing with wrestling, but for some whatever reason, like I wanted to wrestle, so I jumped into that. And then both my parents taught track and field, so I ended up running track as well for part of high school, at least. Yeah.
Ooh. They say that track's the only real sport out there because there's like nothing else between you and that like athletic, like glory out there. It's just you. There's no ball. Ball doesn't lie like when you're out on the track.
Yeah. I mean, I've always been a fan of like capacity-based sports because it is very metrics driven and it's very black and white, like either have it or you don't.
Right. CrossFit and weightlifting is like the similar thing, like you can't really hide, like either you could do the muscle ups or you can't,
Yeah. I don't know why, but I'm really drawn to that kind of stuff. Like obviously there's a lot of sports have tactics and stuff. And so does, CrossFit and other capacity-based sports, but it's like, I'm always been a fan of racing sports.
Yeah. So was athletics not a big passion for you back then? Like when I asked the question, you were like, I did the sports, but I didn't love it too much.
I mean, I don't know. Passion's like a funny thing because like, I don't know, I know people who are super passionate and they're not super committed to something. And it's like, that's probably not a great place to be. but I don't know. So it's like that'll take you so far, but you have to be able to, like, even when you're not feeling it, continue to do it a lot of the times, right? And that's a more delicate balance when you're like a middle schooler, but it's a little bit different when you're more of a grown up and more professional about your approach and things. And so it just needs to shift over time, I guess.
That's deep, dude. So are you like a commitment, and like there's like that saying, what is it? Like discipline will win out when like motivation fails. Like, are you like that kind of person? Are you more of a disciplined person over motivation?
I mean, I think both are super important. Like, I think everybody thinks of motivation and they think of like this fleeting thing that like someone like looks in the mirror and they get super motivated to go to the gym the next morning or something, or they listen to like a YouTube video and they're like, all right, I want to go to the gym. It's like, like
David Goggins, that kind of vibe.
Yeah. Like, I think the people who are most motivated, it's a sustained motivation. It's not like something that just like comes and goes, like, oh, today I don't feel super motivated. Like my people who are in here and like really committed, and like they're the people that other athletes sort of look up to, and they're like seeing really good results and progress. Like they have sustained motivation, right? And discipline obviously like dovetails in with that, and they're both equally sort of important in my mind, maybe in different aspects, but yeah, I think they're both super important.
Yeah, for sure. You can't get to the success without both of those, like a good mix of both of them. So where was like high school been at? Like, what'd you want to do with your life? Did you go to college like with a specific goal in mind? Like, what'd you want to do?
Yeah, I wanted to be a health and phys ed teacher.
So where'd that come from? Like, you said your parents, they both talk track field. Okay.
Yeah. So both of my parents were coaches, and still are. And, like, my mom was a health and phys ed teacher. My dad was an art teacher for 35 years. So like they were both career long teachers. And my mom just took a short break when she was raising us kids. But, so like that's definitely like what I had exposure to. And not only did I have like exposure to it, and like that was like sort of what it, kind of pushed me that way. Not that they ever pushed me to be teachers, but, a teacher, but it was like, I'm still bent that direction. Like, coaching is teaching, basically. It's just like in a different setting. So it's the same thing. But I went to college, studied health and phys ed, and then taught for 2 years. And then I was like, basically like not really cut out to, like, again, I felt led to teach, but not in that setting, right? Not like in the traditional like public school setting. It's just like, for me, it wasn't going to be sustainable over a course of a career. And I knew that. And moving up to Williamsport, it was like an opportunity to kind of restart. So I actually started coaching full time at a CrossFit gym then. And that was like sort of when I kind of changed gears a little bit.
Shifted over like what you focus on and stuff like that. What school, like age wise, were you teaching in for those 2 years?
Yeah. So I taught at a school in downtown Harrisburg, and it was juniors and seniors that I had. It was health and lifelong fitness. The interesting thing about that class in particular was that we didn't have a gymnasium because we were literally downtown Harrisburg, so it was like not a lot of space. So we had a contract with a gym in Strawberry Square, which is just like a little like mall in like downtown Harrisburg, and like we would literally go over there and like I would teach them how to lift and like how to put programs together, and like the whole idea was like by the time they like graduated, because I was dealing with seniors, that they would be able to go to school or wherever they were going after high school and be able to like construct a fitness program for themselves. That was really the goal of it.
That's dope. I live out in like the Souderton area, Pennsylvania, and the gym teacher there is a CrossFit coach, CrossFit gym owner as well, CrossFit Apex. And they do a program over there where one part they do like a mini CrossFit games for the kids, like the end of the school year for the gym class. The kids that take like the strength and conditioning class, I think, as an elective. And then another part in the health class, they do the NASM program. So the kids take that like as the curriculum, and so they could graduate high school with their first personal training cert, and that's like a $1,200 cert, they could go like onto and do the same things that you're doing, like an exercise science degree, people pursuing that path. So it's really cool to like see that in like high schools and stuff. Were you already CrossFitted at that point? Like, what was your lifting and working out like when you were teaching these kids how to do like the program designs? Like, what kind of programs were they doing? Was it based off what you were doing?
So to this day, like even when I program CrossFit, it's like it's not like it's all Metcons or like traditional CrossFit as much. Like
Right.
I kind of take of it like more of a like it's just reps and time and like how quickly you're doing it and like that. Like I think more about work and rest and the patterns that someone's doing than whether it's CrossFit or not, because you can probably define anything however you want. But at that point, yeah, I mean, I had started CrossFit like towards like the tail end of my college athletic career. I was sort of like CrossFitting in like off season for wrestling, basically.
Nice.
So I found it like second half of college. Not that I was doing it in affiliate then. It was just sort of like YouTubing and doing it in my parents' basement sort of thing.
That's the way.
Summers. Yeah, but eventually, yeah, I did join CrossFit 717 just across the river from Harrisburg there. And that was 2017. So that was like maybe 2 or so years after I actually started CrossFitting. So another thing that was actually really interesting, it was CrossFit 717 is pretty close to Harrisburg. So we actually had a program set up where like once a month we would take all the kids over on one of the city buses, and we would literally go over there and work out for like, basically run them through a CrossFit class. And it was some sweet exposure. But no, like in my classes itself, like I didn't like push CrossFit. It was more just like I said, like general good strength training principles. And like, well, for a lot of them, it was like physique stuff that they wanted to get better at, because like they're high school kids and like who doesn't? So yeah, just kind of, helping them to figure out what would be the best path forward with that.
That's awesome. Did you do like any personal training on the side? Like, I know a lot of people have their start in that, like when they're even still a phys ed person, maybe write programs for other people.
Yeah. I started doing some coaching. So I was coaching some at CrossFit 717. I started them just doing like their classes, and was very kind of part-time, but I was super passionate about it, and I was writing my own program like for competitive CrossFit at that point. Kind of like, doing some classes and like figuring out how to like weave my priorities around that.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I've never done a lot of personal training in the very traditional sense where it's like one-on-one with the person. Like I've done some of that and I still do some of that. However, I typically try to set it up if someone like comes to me and they want personal training. Like I think that there's a better use of both of our time and probably their money to go into some sort of a hybrid program. And this is probably special cases for this where somebody moves terribly and they need to have a little bit more, hands-on. Somebody's there, like, can give them real-time feedback. So, but again, if someone's not completely fresh, it's like you could probably figure out some sort of frequency where it's like, okay, why don't we touch base in person together, like a personal training type session, like do that like every 2 weeks or like once a month, where we can kind of check back in and like see how you're doing and how you're moving. And then like the other times it's like you're educated enough where you can either jump into classes or you can do this, individual design program that's written for you, and like just make sure you're giving me feedback and like maybe send me a couple videos of like what this, whatever lift looks like. But like, I feel like if you give most people the autonomy to take on a little bit more, it's usually for the better.
Yeah. So dude, when you were like about to leave the school, where was your like mind at? What did you have like anything that was like the final straw to you that you wanted to make a career change?
No, I mean, frankly, I just love fitness and love CrossFit. And there was like, I actually had it pretty good in the high school I was working at. Like my schedule was pretty flexible. Like I didn't have like a bunch of like coverage stuff. Like there wasn't like bus duty or lunch duty or like any of that stuff. Like I had like this office with like all these big windows that like overlooked Market Street in Harrisburg. Like it was a really cool setup. Not to say that there wasn't like certainly challenges that all teachers face and that, I faced in Harrisburg as well. But it was just clear to me that like, I'm super excited about something else, I guess would be the best way to put it.
Yeah. What was the spark that got you so excited about CrossFit? Was it just like you loved being there so much every day, or was there any like big thing that hit it for you?
I mean, I would even say like the tail end of my wrestling career, like I was much more excited about like training than I was like competing.
Wow.
And then it was like, but at the same time, like I'm a super competitive person. Like it's actually funny. This got brought up at like our wedding, like our officiant like emailed a bunch of like my groomsmen and was like, what are some qualities in Ben? And they were like half of them said that I was competitive. So it's like very clearly like I'm someone who is ultra competitive, and then combine that with like I really enjoy just like strength conditioning and training and like lifting weights and like running and like doing all the stuff that you do in CrossFit. So it's like when you put those two together, it's sort of a no-brainer.
Oh yeah, dude. One of my super close friends, he goes to CrossFit KOP too, man. Like his wedding was New Year's Eve this year, actually. And all of his groomsmen all told stories about him being competitive, and like everyone there could relate. You know, it was like a semi CrossFit, like athletic wedding, like one of those. We all know that he's super competitive. Like he wants to win at everything. Like if I have a game for the warm up, he is like paying attention during the rules. He wants to crush it. You know, he's one of those dudes. Do you like know when you started to be competitive? Was it always like that when you were a kid? Were you like always ripping and roaring and try to win, or like did that like build later on in your life?
That was as early as I can remember. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I actually have like, it's actually on my wall over here, right here in the corner. There are like a bunch of workouts that are written, and they're probably all at least a decade old at this point, like little note cards and stuff. But one of them is like, it has like push-ups, sit-ups, lunges, and it has like all these little tally marks. It's like from like when I was in like 5th grade. It's just like literally I would like do like 100 push-ups a night before I would get in like the shower after like coming home from like track practice or whatever in like middle school. It's like, I don't know a lot of kids that do that, but like, and it wasn't like my parents like told me I needed to do that or anything. Like I just wanted to do it.
Just got after it yourself. That's so dope, bro. There's a kid in my like teen weightlifting class. He's like that. Like one day I challenged him to do Murph, and he was here the next morning, like super pumped up, ready to go. Dude, he's 14. You know, like every time I show him a new dumbbell move, he goes home and his mom's like, he did like 100 of those last night. Yeah, well, bro, that's a little extra, but it's cool though. You know, he's really dope. Do you like ever find a problem like teaching or trying to show your like one-on-one clients and your competitive athletes how to be competitive? Do they all come like that already, or do you have to flesh that out with anybody?
I would say like if someone's not super competitive, I probably don't push them to be super competitive.
Yeah.
Like you don't need to be. Like most people are coming to me like, you're an adult, like this is a hobby. Like if you're not super competitive, like, okay, it's not your thing. Like it's fine. Right. And then other people, they are super competitive, and like obviously I can relate to that. And also it's like just the conversation's a little bit different. If you're trying to win at something and be the best, it's just a different conversation than like, you know, even just seeing progress, right? Like everybody wants to see progress, whether you're competitive or not, but it's the way you go about it is going to be a little bit different. And like certainly the conversations you have and like the mentality that you have as you go about your work is going to be a little bit different. So even like for the people who go to compete once in a while at like a local comp, or like, you know, they like to be sort of recreationally competitive, it's even that is very different than someone who's trying to be the best at something.
Who has the bigger goals, stuff like that. Yeah, for sure. So, dude, tell me, like, how did Lumber Capital come about? When did you transition to being a co-owner from just a CrossFit coach? What was that journey like?
Oh, man. We could be here a while. Yeah, there's a lot that goes into that, obviously. But, you know, really it was just like, if for me, it was like, if I'm not willing to up and move my family and like uproot our life to like move somewhere that has like a good community already established, it's like you have to build it. So there wasn't anything really around here that was, you know, fulfilling the needs of the CrossFitters in the area and other people who are kind of oriented that direction, and certainly not anything for like competitive athletes that was worthwhile, frankly. So yeah, taking the time to figure out, and not just like, it would be one thing if it was like, that was it, right? It was like, hey, I just want to build a facility. And it was kind of the same thing with Stacy. It was like, there was clearly a gap in the area as well. And I feel like that's not super common in 2022 to have that. Like
it's definitely not. There's like 6 gyms right in this direct vicinity. Yeah. When I first started CrossFit, like it was not like that, you know, and they're like 10 plus year too, you know? Mm-hmm.
So like, it was kind of unique in that way. Like, we did have a gap, so we tried to fill that up and like provide a quality facility for people and good quality coaching, and like, you know, just a place where like it's run by people who are professionals and they want to provide a good service and they want to have people who see good success. And if you can do that and you can commit to doing that over a course of, a decade plus, like you're going to do something special.
Hell yeah. So you guys just opened last year?
Yeah, October 2022.
That's crazy. What's the first year been like?
I've been really enjoying it.
Hell yeah.
And again, I think that a big part of that is the fact that I can split duties with my business partner and then I'm not here from 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. like a lot of CrossFit gym owners are when they first open up. So the fact that I can focus on, at least to a degree, like the stuff that I want to, so to speak, in the business. And there's always gonna be stuff that you don't want to do. And that's just part of life and like part of being a business owner and frankly, a human being. But allowing myself to like enjoy the aspects of the job that are enjoyable and then just like, being disciplined and getting the stuff done that needs to get done.
Yeah. Dude, so you just said, like, you just touched on it again, that you're more of the business side of things. Like, have you always been business minded? Where'd you like get those skills from?
So I would say Stacey and I are both in charge of the business. I have no business background at all. Like I just started coaching people and eventually I was like, I should probably open an LLC for Zor Fitness.
Oh man, why are we all like that?
and then it's like, I did. Yeah. And it's like, well, all right, well, I should, originally it was just like for Zor, it was like literally like I just started a website and I started like posting like to like the blog and made some videos and stuff, started coaching a few people and I was just like giving away everything for free. And I was like, I should probably start charging for this. So like, no, it was obviously like with Lumber Capital, like opening a facility, you have to be a lot more strategic than just like, getting your feet wet in coaching. Cause there's a lot more risk, frankly. So you have to kind of be a little bit more diligent to do things right up front. But, yeah, I mean, there's still a recalibrating as you go.
Yeah, hell yes. I mean, especially the first 5 years for people, like just learning. You're really always learning, but especially if you're doing a business like you're saying. You just brought it up, man. So tell me about Zor. What is that?
Yeah, so that's my remote coaching business. It's me and two other coaches right now, Chris Hardenberg and Dave Munoz. And it's three of us, and we coach CrossFit athletes mainly. But anybody who's in the functional community, let's call it, who's looking to hire a one-on-one coach, we're definitely a good option.
Hell yeah. What's Zor stand for? What's that mean?
So it's actually a biblical city. So in the book of Genesis, there's this husband and wife and their family, and they're like living in this like evil city, and God says that he's going to destroy the city, and he basically sets their destination or like their goal essentially as Zor, which is a place. So like him and his family are going, and they're instructed to like go to their destination and like don't look back. And it's funny in this story, not really funny, but the wife actually turns around and looks back at the city and is being destroyed, and she turns into a pillar of salt. So that's sort of like a harsh reminder of like, go towards your goals, like pursue them, like stay the course is what I always say.
Yeah.
Like don't look back, like don't get distracted, like don't, again, like focus on where you're going and like be oriented towards that at all times.
I love that. It's like the burn the ships mentality,
Yeah, exactly.
There is no escape. I like that. All right, dude. So what do you guys do like as far as remote coaching? How do you go about that? Like, do you have a in-person meet with the people? I know some of the athletes are like people at your gym, but when you have like people that reach out that aren't from the gym, do you have them come in? Do you do like what's it called process, like a trial process where you view their lifts, their times and stuff like that? How does someone get started with you?
Yeah, so typically people will reach out because they've seen, they either know other athletes who are being coached by them, they see our content that we've been putting out, they've on the website because they found it somehow or whatever, they'll reach out. Typically I'll just jump on a call with them and be like, hey, let's talk through like, through what you're looking to get out of this and like see if we're a good fit. And like sometimes there's people who it's like, I think it would probably make more sense for you to go to your local box and get some exposure there first, and then we'll start working together. But most of the time it's something that I think that we could handle. So talk to them, and then I mean, a lot of the people, it's like they're not from the area. Like I have people throughout Europe. I've had people in Australia and like all, frankly, like probably every continent at this point, except the far north and south. Like it's basically like, I've had people from all over the place. And so like most of the time it's not feasible for someone to come in. So we'll put them through like a movement screen where I'm able to like see basically what their restrictions are. I'll take a look at all their sport movements. So like their CrossFit stuff. So there's different gymnastics movements, their weightlifting stuff, and then like start to put them through a little bit more of like a testing once we actually get into training.
Yeah.
And like basically it's just like a lot of like video review, talking with them, trying to communicate and figure out what their facility looks like, what their schedule looks like, what their priorities are, and figuring out at that point what training should look like based on that.
Yeah, that's dope. Well, do you remember like what kind of athlete you were, like to be coach wise, like how you like to be coached and how you like to be dealt with? Were you a coachable athlete?
I would say yes. Yeah. Should probably say most of the time. Like there are things where like I've had coaches in the past be like, oh, why don't you do this instead? And it's like, I kind of know better. And like maybe that comes back to bite me once in a while, but I also think as somebody in like a fitness profession, you kind of have to have a BS meter as well. Yeah, I would say in general, I am bent a little bit towards like how I like to be coached, where I am just a little bit more like reserved and like more of like, I would call it like non-vocal support, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm not just like going to be over there like cheering for you during like your qualifier, although like I will like obviously like want your best and like will cheer you on, but it's like at the same time, it's like my job as a coach is to figure out like what you need to be doing to be at your best. And maybe that is cheering for me, but oftentimes it's like saying like, okay, like, figuring out what kind of splits that you need, or like figuring out like if you're making sure like your cameras are working and like basically like playing the role of an agent a little bit. Or again, there's other times where like I'm obviously like if a client has a win, I'm going to celebrate the win with them. There's other times where like, they're going through hard stuff and it's like important that I'm just like there as like support. So it does vary a little bit based on who the person is. Obviously, like you got to meet them where they're at and how they like to be coached. Where there are some people who want way more feedback and want way more communication, and just like, it's not that they're like I don't want to say like needy because that's like the wrong word, but like basically they like to communicate in a certain style, and like I have to need to match them in that style, where other people they're much better off about just like, okay, I'll give you my feedback, and like then basically like my response to that is just like building out their training the next week and like, talking to them if there's stuff that pops up as a result of that. So kind of tailoring it to what the athlete needs, plus like trying to be a good, just like a support to them how they need it.
Do you have a topic that you'd like to request as a future show, or just a question about training? Reach out to me. My email is ben@zorfitness.com, or you can DM me on Instagram @zorfitness. Lastly, head over to zorfitness.com if you want to browse all of our previous shows with in-depth show notes, as well as educational content for all things training.
Yeah. Sometimes you just got to be a sounding board, like hear the things they have going on, because they're dealing with outside factors that are going to affect what you're trying to do, So like, the athlete needs to feel like they can trust you, with sometimes more than just like what's going to be in their programming for the week. And that can really develop a strong relationship between coach and athlete, Yeah.
And I think that goes beyond program design. Obviously, like coaching, like that's why I don't, like only advertise like, oh, individualized programming on our website. Like, okay, that's a very obvious big part of it. However, it's like coaching goes way beyond that. It's like, you need to be able to communicate with them, figure out how they tick, figure out what's going to motivate them to keep coming back in and like pushing and like seeing good progress and like, all the stuff that goes beyond just the X's and O's.
Hell yeah. So dude, something like that I talked to my buddy that's super competitive about is like, and that his wife spoke about, was helping him find things to relax and unwind, because he's like literally always on the go trying to do stuff. Like what's your downtime look like? How do you like chill out and not think about work or being competitive?
I don't ever stop thinking about something. Right?
I knew it.
I mean, so like I I do my best to be present where I'm at.
Yeah.
So like when I go home, I try to be present with my family, with my wife and my son. And like anybody who's goal oriented, like that can be a challenge. And like it's also like the same thing for, you know, anybody who's got like personal stuff going on when they're at work. It's like it would be a challenge to just completely shut that out and trying to just be as present as you can with each thing that you go to, like knowing that like most people don't have just like a singular goal in life. Like that's extremely rare. So it's like, I do want to be the best father that I can and the best husband that I can. I also want to be like the best gym owner from like a business perspective, but also like provide the best experience for my athletes and my clients here at the gym. So it's like, in order to show up best in each one of those places, it's just like a matter of like trying at least to block off that to be present in each one of those individually.
Yeah. Responsibility is like a gift, they say, right? That means you have things to care about. Like it's good to have responsibilities and stressors, you know, like all of those things you care about them. So you want to be able to give your attention to them, give your power to them when you're there. So that's dope. Back to the gym, dude. What's the difference between like your Zor programming for your competitive athletes and your like in-class group classes at Lumber Capital?
Yeah, a lot more is different than is similar, maybe. I mean, either way, they follow like good program design principles, right? Like if you hit a pattern, you should probably give it a break before you come back to it, right? You want to hit a variety of energy systems. You want to hit, you know, the stuff that people are going to see when they're doing the stuff that they're, you know, basically paying you to do, right? So in the case of the athletes in our classes, it's like they want to get better at like the benchmark workouts. They want to get better at their benchmark lifts. And it's like for my competitive people, like they want to go out and they want to win, or they want to be, you know, better than they were previous years on the leaderboard. So for me, when I think about like more of the class-based programming, it's like the having fun aspect, the feeling like I got to work out is way more important than it is for the competitors. And then it's like underneath that, it's like making sure that the people stay healthy and that there's actually seeing progress. Whereas like for my individual design clients, those kind of flipped, where it's like the most important thing is that their metrics are improving, right?
Yeah.
Or that they're like improving their finish in competitions, that they're improving their position on the leaderboard. Like that's the most important thing. Like that's why they hired me. So it's
right.
That has to improve. And then it's like below that, it's like keeping them healthy. And then below that, it's like having some fun, right? And keeping things fresh and different.
Hell yeah. I love what you said about the class programming, the people needing to enjoy it and feel like they got to work out. I feel like when people write class programming, sometimes they forget, like, because there's some days I see on like, what's it called? The CAP workouts from CrossFit Affiliate, that it'll be like a super short workout. And it's like, it's not even like Fran intensity. Like there was like a muscle up and something else workout that was like last week, but it was just like a couplet of those back and forth. Oh, muscle ups and running with a partner. And like I give really good scales for muscle ups, but they don't always transition well to the class because they've been doing it for so long. Not everyone's willing to put in that extra 5 minutes a day to go do the muscle up work after class to be able to get one. So like for them, it was a stupid workout, you know, 200-meter runs and muscle ups with your partner back and forth. Either you could or you couldn't. Some people did the harder transition, some people didn't, you know. So people were bored that day.
Yeah.
But it's a good workout because it's variable and it's not like something that we usually do. But people need to enjoy it. They need to feel like they had a workout. They're paid a membership to come to your gym to get a workout in and then to go home, you know.
Yeah.
That's really important part.
Yeah, I mean, so I feel like there's a responsibility as someone as a fitness professional where you have to give the person a little bit of what they want, right?
Yeah.
Like they want to get sweaty. They want to feel like they got to work out. They want to feel like they got sore, right? Especially like people who are completely fresh. Like that's their markers of like, oh, did I get a good workout in? Oh, like I can feel my chest. Like, oh, I'm that must be working. Like the next day, it's like, oh, I was super sweaty and I was out of breath when I was doing this. So man, I must be getting more fit. And it's like, that's true to a certain extent. Right. And also like you want the person to keep coming back. So it's important that you do give them at least a little bit of that, but then you have to balance that with, like I said, like the good program design principles of like, okay, at a certain point, if all you do is trash yourself every day, like that's not a good road to go down. And we need to be more, you know, smart for a better lack of a better term of like, you know, how you're dosing them with certain patterns throughout the week, the volume that they're getting in certain patterns in an individual class. And like, that's easier when it's one person, you're like in a personal, you know, training session, or it's like a individual assigned client. It's when it's an entire class and you got all these different, you know, levels, like you're saying, like the scaling options for one person might be a terrible workout where it's super tough for somebody else and like a quote unquote, like good workout. So like, that's what you got to think about in like the class setting is like, there's going to be people who, if you do every 2 minutes for 10 sets of a 15-second assault bike sprint, there's going to be the 250-pound guy who's absolutely trash. He doesn't want to come back in for the next 4 days after that. And there's going to be like the 56-year-old soccer grandma who, you know, is like, why am I even here? Like, I'm not even out of breath at all. She's like, why is that guy laying over there? And she
probably
like,
just like the whole time, never rested, you know, like one of those kind of ladies.
Yeah. And it's like, it's like, obviously for most people, they're going to be somewhere in the middle, but figuring out how you can either vary it or like tailor it in a way that is going to be appropriate for everybody, but then also give them a little bit of what they want.
Hell yeah. Because I love what you said in there about like owing it to them, right? Because think about this, like as a business owner, if we really want to grow CrossFit and you want to fill affiliates, you want to grow more gyms and all that, so more people are doing fitness, you got to keep the person in your gym from like going home and feel like they didn't go to workout to go to like spin, and they're going to leave there sweaty every single time.
That was actually going to be my follow-up, was like that, you know, soccer grandma, she's going to go for a run after class.
Yeah, exactly. Like they could go
like that's the set that starts to happen.
And they're gonna get sweaty every single run. They're gonna get sweaty every single time they go to a Zumba class. Like, so you like don't get so in the way of your programming that you want to have like cool niche CrossFit programming that people like aren't getting, you know, the workouts in every day. I think I see some people that get lost in that stuff. So as far as your individual programming athletes, like how long do you normally plan out cycles? Like how long do you normally plan out, like even if you do a week by week, what's your process for most people?
Yeah. So like 95% of my clients I program one week at a shot, like all the time. Yeah, like year round. But at the same time, like I'll have like their sort of yearly calendar that I'm always updating. So I'll have a rough idea of like what the arch of their season will look like. So say like right now when we're recording this, it's June. So it's like a lot of people are like smack in the middle of like their quote unquote like off season training, like their limiter stuff. So their big priorities that they're driving up, like you're driving up probably someone's like aerobic base, their strength ceiling, like some of their individual patterns that are probably not up to par, and like muscular endurance, you might be taking care of that. And then it's like you're like, I'll have all the cycles built out in like the one spreadsheet, and it'll basically be like, you know, let's call it like 6-week cycles or something, right? Where I have at least an idea of where things are going and how training could progress over time. Where it's like, okay, we get towards fall, we're going to do stuff that starts to look more like the sport and try to shift more of their priorities from maybe the slower strength lifts to maybe Olympic lifting, to make it, you know, overly simplified. Like that sort of like overall arch to the season. And then when it's actually like practically written out for a lot of people, that'll end up getting changed a little bit. They'll be like, hey coach, I want to do this competition in, you know, September, and there's a qualifier that's in July. So it's like, okay, we need to at least gear up a little bit for that qualifier. So things will shift over time, obviously, and it's always being updated. Yeah. But, and same thing, it like goes for like, okay, I might have this idea of like, okay, I probably want to run this first limiter cycle for 6 weeks, but at the same time, you know, they're seeing great progress. Okay, let's run it for another 2 and see how they do. Right. Yeah. And at that point, maybe we deload for a couple of days and jump back into some same priorities, but different formats where it's shifted a little bit. So I have a rough idea of where things go. And then based on the feedback that they're giving me week over week, and since it is such a short feedback loop compared to what a lot of people do for programming, like 4 to 6 weeks blocks out at a time, like it's literally 1 week at a shot, but I make sure to try to keep the same priorities for at least probably 4 weeks at a minimum, maybe 8 weeks at a maximum. And really make sure that you're seeing good change in that. And if not, you need to adjust course anyway. So I feel like it's a little bit different for program design for individuals, especially in CrossFit where there are so many variables that you're trying to, you know, keep in check. But that's kind of the way I run it.
Yeah. Hell yeah, dude. I'll tell you what, man, I've had multiple people come to me from like other coaches who would just give them like their programming however 4, 6, 8 weeks all at once, and like them not let them like change it at all.
Have they done CrossFit?
And I'm like, especially the CrossFit ones, like if it's weightlifting, you should kind of be able to like change it on your own. But doing all that stuff, I'm like, dude, so that can't be like individualized programming then. If you just, it's like slapstick and you just give them all to them at once. It's like, well, dude, what if they wake up and they're like have a cold next Tuesday?
Yeah.
All the different things. What if like in the middle of it, some qualifier gets announced and they move a date up in the middle of it? Now they're like smacked. They're supposed to heavy back squat that day,
which is actually one of the reasons why I don't program out more than when we get a shot, because people are like, hey, coach, I have this vacation in 2 weeks that I didn't tell you about. And it's like, well, if you program out 4 weeks at a shot, like you got to either completely ignore what they're doing and just be a terrible coach, or you're going to reprogram for them. So it's like, not only is it save you a lot of time, but then it's you, like I said, you keep that shorter feedback loop so you can actually tailor your training to what they need.
Right. You can have the macro cycle, like you said, all built out, and then like the plans for all the mesocycles, like after that, and like fill in the blank of and vary what you're going to do as far as patterns and priorities, like you were talking about,
Yeah, 100%. That's what I do. So like on the back end of stuff on the side that I'm programming on, it's like I have the skeleton or the template of all their individual priorities, and like either sometimes it's like, maybe like Monday, Wednesday, they're running this like linear progression that is very structured and hopefully it doesn't change. Like I look in and their feedback's like, hey coach, it was RPE 8 last week. And it's like, well, we only have 2 more weeks of this. Let's just keep running it and see how things go. Versus they're like, hey, that was RPE 9.5 and we're supposed to have 2 more weeks in the cycle. It's like, okay, you either got to adjust, at what point you're going to, you got to either change it up a little bit.
Yeah.
You just can't keep progressing them through. Like they're not going to be able to handle it. So
yeah.
That's like one thing, is that you can have like those linear progressions that are kind of sitting underneath that, but then you can also have things that are more varied in the week, and you can kind of keep some like bumpers or like, put it in a sandbox so there you have constraints on it where it's like, okay, I want to have some like sport-based intervals on this, Wednesday PM before they go into the recovery day, because it's going to be more taxing. And I just got to make sure that I avoid some of the upper body pushing and pulling, because we did a ton of that earlier in that day, and also on Monday beforehand. So it's like, you can still be creative in how you do that stuff, but just make sure you put it in constraints so that you're able to, be a little bit more, strategic in how you actually give it to them.
How you all planned it out. All right, dude. So I want to talk about the podcast now. How'd you get into that? How'd you get into any of the media stuff? When did you start that stuff?
So I believe it was 3 years ago now, a little over 3 years ago when I started the podcast. My wife encouraged me to do it, so I'll give her credit to her. But yeah, it was basically just like bought a mic and started talking on my own. And it was all like solo stuff for the first season of the podcast. I think like the first 20 episodes were all individual, and then I started having some guests on, and now it's like,
how was that? How was like just talking to yourself like in the very beginning?
Oh, super awkward. Yeah,
I know, dude. Record those solo episodes. It's like, does anyone want to hear this? Am I talking to myself right now? Things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a little awkward. Like people are like, oh, you're in front of the camera a lot, or you're talking a lot. Like, but it does. At least for me, it's definitely gotten less awkward over time. Like it just feels like part of what I do now more so. Like hearing my own voice isn't freaking out as it used to and stuff. Like still not the biggest fan, but like I can tolerate it now. Whereas like even like a lot of guests, like when I get them like here in the studio, like they put the headphones on, they can get some feedback, and they're like, whoa, okay. I was like, I'll turn that down a little, like for you. Not quite used to hear your own voice.
Right. In that kind of quality too. It's funny. Do you do the editing for the podcast?
I do.
So what's it like when you have to go put the headphones in and like re-edit at the after the episodes?
Yeah. I mean, that like initially that was always like the worst, was like hearing yourself and like all of your mistakes that you make, and like
like anything like that,
Yeah, totally. So again, I kind of listen back to everything like as I'm editing it, not only for like, obviously the quality of the audio, but like especially for like a lot of the interviews that I do, like I basically am just re-listening to what that guest actually had to say, and I kind of use it as like a note-taking opportunity, even if it's just sort of like mental notes.
Yeah. Put for the show notes and all that stuff. So is that like work to you, or do you feel like that's like where you can kind of unwind, or does that feel like more of the job?
That usually feels like work. Yeah.
Work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't mind doing it. Like I don't feel the need right now. That could easily change in the future, but I don't feel the need to outsource that right now. Because I'm fairly efficient at it and I don't really mind it, but I would be lying if I said it didn't feel like work most of the time.
Yeah, it's tough, dude. I mean, editing, like you having to reach out to people, having the conversations, it's time consuming too, as well as hard.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but it's a good time. So, dude, what's next? What are you hungry for? What's the next goal?
Well, right now it's about noon, so I could probably go for some like Wegman sushi or something. I mean, I would say I'm super excited for doubling down on what we're already doing here. Like things are going well, and like I just want to continue to see progress from our members, right? Continue to get them to see results, continuing to work with my individual design clients to get them to the highest level of their potential, right? That's sort of what jazzes me up as a coach, is like seeing people get to their potential. And like, I want to be a great example for my son and continue to raise him to the best of my ability. And, you know, figuring out what it means to be a father who's also a business owner, and, you know, being there for my wife and my son, and so trying to support the family while also supporting the people who can, you know, have needs here at the gym, and figuring out how to balance all that, and not just balance it all, but like thrive in that and like push everybody to be at their best. That's exciting to me.
Oh yeah. Keep all the cups full, you know, keep maximizing it, everything. It's dope.
Yeah. And at a certain point, like you're going to have to hand off stuff, and I'm aware of that. And there's some things that I'm, you know, outsourcing already, but like figuring out like what things I do want to hold on to, what things I care about, and what things I'm okay letting go of. And
are you good at that? Are you good at handing off the jobs and letting someone else do it?
Of course not. No, I'm not. But I also recognize that it's something that you have to do if like you're going to just stunt your own growth, especially like for example, like in a business, right? If I'm like, I have to coach every single class, or because no one is as good as I am, right?
Yeah.
Not saying that's true, but even if that was true, it's like, that's not going to be the way that you're growing your business.
Yeah.
If you're only ever working in your business, you can never work on your business. So it's like,
right.
You have to figure out, without like micromanaging, you feel like you have to micromanage every single detail of like your business it's like, it's going to be a long career.
Right.
Doing things that way.
If you start a business and you have to be there all the time and you can't work on it, like you said, then like at what cost? You know, what cost did you start that for? What's it going to do for you? But Ben, it's been a great episode, dude. Got to go get ready for my 12 o'clock class right now. It's got like everything in it. I got to go coach rope climbs, power snatches, GHDs, and what's the other thing? Ski erg in this next hour. And it's a 5-round workout. I'm like, hey, what are you doing to me? Come on now. Like, I like to have a little bit more talking points in the class. So this is going to be a doozy, man. Wish me luck, bro. It's been a great episode. Guys, go check out Ben. Go check them out. Zor Fitness. Is that the name of your program aid on Instagram?
You got it. Zor Fitness.
And then Lumber Capital on Instagram as well. Go check them all out. Check the podcast out. Ben, thanks for coming on.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Adios, bro.
Thanks for listening today. If you're someone who just started listening to the show, I would encourage you to subscribe so you can stay up to date. If you're someone who's been listening for a while, I would encourage you to rate and review the show. And lastly, the best thing that you can do to support our work is also the best thing that you can do for your performance. And that is by hiring one of our coaches. Until next time, stay the course.